Hey there, welcome to Lunch and Learn. This is the last Lunch and Learn of the season, so thank you guys so much for joining in live or watching the recording if you're coming back later. I'm Jamie Starcevich, the designer and owner behind Spruce Road. If you're new to Lunch and Learn, this is typically a weekly workshop where we get together and just go over design tips and tricks or get together with fellow creatives and just kind of learn behind the scenes or any advice that they can share of their business. So typically I'm accompanied by a host, but since this is the last one of the season, I wanted to dive into a topic that I'm really excited to share about. It's how I've grown my business from freelancer to now working with a team. So I will dive into a few of your questions. I already see there some great questions from you guys. If you are here live, would you mind just popping in questions below this video? And I'll get to those at the very end. Also, just let me know if you guys have any trouble with hearing me or the slide share. I would like to know that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. All right. I'm going to keep the chat up over here just to make sure that you guys can see everything all right. So today we're going to be talking about from freelancing to growing your team. And I'll just share just a little bit of a background for you guys first. So in January of 2015, about a year ago, I started my own business. I set out as a freelancer with zero overlap and from a previous job where I wasn't allowed to freelance on the side. I always knew that I wanted to grow my business beyond just freelancing over the years. So I had a long-term approach from the beginning. I knew at some point my husband and I would have kids, so I didn't want to feel locked down to each client project. So, or put my business on hold each time I was on maternity leave. Not only that, I knew I would be limited in how far Spruce Road could reach if I just reduced down the tasks that I could complete by myself. So that's a recipe for an overworked, stressful lifestyle that I was not ready to accept. I have waited to share my insight in this process until I gain more experience with my team. Since hiring a team, I've subcontracted out 9 client projects, each of them with a successful and happy client, as well as designer upon completion. I'm confident in my process and the designers I work with consistently, and I'm finally ready to share what's worked for our team. So I'm going to go ahead and let's see here. I'll keep this off to the side just in case I see your questions in the chat. Okay, so why switch to a team model rather than a freelancer? So though switching to a team model might not be for everyone, I just wanted to share a few reasons why it might be the best for your brand. So this workshop is by no means to encourage you guys to switch to a team model. I totally understand that is not the right fit for everyone. So if you are thinking about switching, you'll kind of know from these warning signs. You are eager to work on side projects and build your brand, but the client work demands all of your time. You feel overworked and stressed out handling the business, bookkeeping, marketing, and client work. In thinking long term, you would like to trust your business in other capable hands. You think your brand could benefit from different skill sets, perspectives, or aesthetics if you're a designer. You're booked out several months in advance. So when to make the switch? As it is always said, better sooner than later. This mantra holds true when looking for starting to work with the design team. So honestly, I didn't wait until I made 100K when I started hiring. I knew I would grow my team, and I started getting more project inquiries that I couldn't pass up on. I could have offered to book them a month or two in advance, but that business model really never resonated with me. It seems like a disservice to the client to make them wait months for their project to begin. It also starts the project on a somewhat sour note, and that they had to wait so long to book. Nobody likes to wait, so instead of booking, I grew my team. Technically, Spruce Road could have just remained me if I booked out in advance. However, that system is never built to last. So just think about it. If you're consistently booked out, or you're most likely exponentially growing your inquiries each month or year that passes. So if you're booked out a full year ahead, your inbox probably continuously receives an increasing amount of new leads each month. This is not a structure built for longevity. It seems like a short-term Band-Aid solution. So rather than entertain the idea of getting booked out, I encourage you to grow your team earlier than necessary so you can take on more projects that are the right fit. It truly is a win-win. The client is thrilled to have the availability. The designer is happy that they have a freelance project, and you as the owner are happy that you can finally step away. All right, so how to structure your team. There's a few different ways you can do this. I'm just going to share a few ideas I have for you guys, no matter if you're a designer or a different creative industry. You could hire subcontractors to handle client work. You could hire a project manager to assist in setting up each project, work with copywriters for marketing and materials, collaborate with an assistant to manage email inquiries, tasks, proofreading, etc. Hire a social media manager, work with a writer to create content marketing for your brand. Okay, so here's a few tips on how to grow your team. Let me go ahead and do full screen. So a few tips on how to grow your team. Number one is to only work with the best. So for me, I select subcontractors that I think are either at my same skill set or preferably better than I am. This takes a little humility, but I truly think this is the only way to go about building a successful team. The designers I work with always send me proofs before the client views them, and I honestly have hardly any revisions, if any. They always blow me away, and it gets me super excited about the project. This is kind of the proof of hiring the right people, is when they send you the work and you have limited revisions. So tip number two is to encourage transparent communication. Rather than remaining the main contact for the client, I trust my designers to interact with the client directly. So this opens up communication and allows for transparency in the process. I much prefer this over somehow hiding that I didn't design the work. When I previously worked at a design studio for a brief time, they wouldn't allow me to talk to clients. This was a shock to me since my previous experience of 4 years always allowed open communication, and I was allowed to talk directly to the client. It is damaging to the relationship between the owner and the subcontractor if you don't trust them to communicate with the clients. In order to build a lasting relationship with your contractor, remember you think that they're better than you, trust them with your business. Tip three is to establish clear systems. So before hiring a team, I had loose processes in place. Once I knew I was hiring, I quickly got everything together and created a clear system for my client process. I created a Google Drive folder for my team that included my step-by-step process, branding templates, examples of previous work, and even swipe files that they could send to the client in Basecamp. This is how I've made this seamless process, and it limits the questions that I have from designers. They can always reference the Google folder to anticipate what's next in the project. So tip four is to always have a contract in W-9. So though I'm still kind of finessing my designer contract, I realize it's important to always have a contract between you, the owner, and the subcontractor, as well as a W-9. So I really won't go into too many details here because I highly recommend that you talk to your accountant or lawyer like I did to make sure these documents are accurate. You want to protect your business as well as set it up correctly, so don't forget these documents. A few terms I included in my designer contract was to prohibit the designer from working directly with the client outside of Spruce Road for a certain period of time. They can't repurpose or sell any of the processes or templates that I created for them, and they agree to meet deadlines, etc. So just kind of walk through what you would like protected in the process and put that in writing. The last tip that I have for you guys, really flying through these, tip 5 is to let them take the reins. So as the creative director, I actually do little directing. As mentioned before, I work with the best designers and illustrators, so I don't feel it's necessary for me to have my toes in every project. So of course I'm there for them throughout the process, and approve the proofs before the client sees them. I think that is a much healthier and better structure to allow your subcontractor to take the reins. For instance, the illustrator I work with, she always just knocks my socks off when I receive a proof. I literally shriek like each time I open my email and see the illustration. She comes up with the most creative concepts, has killer design work, and a skill set that I have no business interfering with. So why would I want to stifle her process? I'm always there to provide suggestions, and by no means am I an absent creative director, but I avoid becoming that backseat driver to the designers. So through allowing them to take the reins, they are more invested in the project, develop clear and unique solutions, and are more excited about the work that they're doing. All right, let me switch on over. I know that was really quick. Let's see. Stop sharing. All right, let's see if you guys have any kind of questions you want to go through. Feel free to ask those as well. This is probably going to be a little bit of a shorter lunch and learn, just the nature of the topic. This is from Crystal Fleming. Did you hire people you had never met in person, and was it hard to trust them? As in, will they be spending the time on a project they say they will? And do you have a backup plan if they don't deliver a good design? That's a great question. I kind of went over that a little bit in those tips, is that I really hire designers that I trust. So I talk to them on the phone first. I actually don't know them in person. One of them I met after the fact. We met up at a coffee shop just because she's kind of local to me. But I hired designers that I found online. So you don't really have to know them in person. I wouldn't say it's hard to trust them because I really value their design aesthetic. So that wasn't too difficult for me. And you just have to have faith that they will meet the deadlines. As far as a backup plan, I'm a designer myself, so I could always step in if needed. But that really hasn't come up. Okay, so let's see. This is from Jennifer. She says, hello and thank you. I just wanted to know, what is the best way to have to build a team when not having too many clients? How can you work with the team to present packages to get more leads? So I'll kind of tackle the first part of that, which is how do you build a team when you don't have too many clients? So that's kind of what I did. I really didn't have, like I said, I wasn't booked out months in advance. I built a team as I was generating clients. So I think that's the best way to do it, honestly, is to go before you're actually fully ready to make that move. Because like I said, better sooner than later. That way you can have time to kind of work with them, communicate, sort out the kinks, and get a good process in place while you're not swamped with client work. So I think that's the best way to build a team. So as far as income, that could be a little bit scary. In that you're giving away probably a huge chunk of your income at that time to someone else, but just know long term that it will be worth it for your brand if you can see that it will help you grow. How can you work with the team to present packages to get more leads? So I'm not really sure what that means. Maybe you're saying like they could handle your email, and when clients inquire about your services, you could have them kind of get back to the leads. I'm not really sure. So I'm sorry if I can't answer that. Bree has a kind of a similar question, I think, later. So I'll get to that. Oh, here it is. Okay. Have you ever had a client who didn't want to work with on one of your team members and only wanted to work with you? How do you handle that if A, you're overbooked, or B, you think another designer would do a better job? So I actually have had that happen at the very beginning, and that I feel like was my fault because I didn't present that I worked with the team very clearly. So what happened was I had already booked calls with these, I think it was my first 2 clients that other designers worked with. I booked calls with them, talked to them, told them I'm starting something new and that I'm going to be working with the team. I think just telling them that it was really new made them feel a little bit unsettled about it. And they didn't know about it. It was a little bit of a bait and switch on the phone. So I totally get that. It's my fault that they didn't know that up front. Sorry about the typos that Bree said. No worries. So anyways, I only encountered that once. I didn't really tell them up front. So how I've resolved that now is when someone replies or sends an inquiry my way, I have a canned response in Gmail that I send, and I customize it for their project. But I'll put in there about Spruce Road. So I have a line on there that says, in case we're meeting for the first time or you need a refresher, I'm Jamie, da da da. I work with a team of designers. So they know from that very first email that I work with a team. So it's not a bait and switch. They're not surprised when I tell them later. So that was the only 2 cases that happened. And my designers worked with them and they were totally fine. Once I talked them through at the very beginning that this is going to be great, I'll be there the whole time. Even in one of the surveys at the very end, the client said she was at first hesitant, but loved the end product and that the designer did such a great job. So I have that in place now, and I really haven't encountered it since I made the switch. All right, that's a great question. Okay, how do you deal, this is another question from Bree, how do you deal with paying your freelancers, taxes for that and everything? So how I deal with that is I set up a W-9. They sign up from the very beginning along with the designer contract. So that's similar to like a W-2 form if you are a full-time employee somewhere, but W-9 is for contractors, meaning that I don't pay their taxes or anything like that. They're in charge of doing that themselves. It's really easy form to set up. I just send it to my accountant when I'm done, and then they'll send them, I think it's an I-9 or I can't remember the form, 1099 maybe, I don't know. They'll send them that form later. So I would go through your accountant for that. As far as paying the freelancers, I pay them through my bank, and my bank has a bill pay set up. I think it costs maybe 25 cents per bill pay, and I just send them a check. It's really easy. It takes literally 30 seconds to send them a check for each project. Also for paying my freelancers, I don't pay them a salary or a monthly income. I do per project because I can't guarantee how many projects I'll have. And I want to make sure that they are excited about the project, have the availability, ready to take it on. I also want them to be free to take on any other freelance projects that they have on their own. As a designer myself, I hated being stifled that I couldn't do other freelance projects while I worked for a design studio. So all my designers are allowed to do their own work as well. So I just do per project basis, pay them by check, send them that W-9 at first. Hope that helps. Yes. Okay. So this is another question from Bree. She says, I don't have to answer this, but I'm more than happy to answer. She says, do you pay your designers based on project and then keep a percentage for yourself? Absolutely. Otherwise, it's not a profitable business. So you have to keep a percentage for yourself. So I base that based on my my website, and my brand has generated several leads. I've done a lot of marketing. My blog has generated a lot of leads. So I have to pay myself for that, as well as I'm setting up the project. I take care of the contract for the client, take care of invoicing for the client. I find the client for them. So I do all of that. So you absolutely, if you have a team, you have to take a percentage for yourself. I will say last year that percentage was much lower. My rates were a lot lower. So I couldn't really justify keeping so much for myself. I wanted my designers to get paid decent. So I only kept just a little bit for myself, knowing that this year I would raise my rates. So now it's paying off and I get a lot more for that. I also have illustrators and developers I work with too. So it really kind of varies per project. So sometimes a project may require a more custom illustration, more elaborate design work. So the percentage could be a little bit lower, but yeah, that's a great question. Definitely encourage you to profit from this if you have a team. Let's see, I think that's kind of all the questions. If you guys have any others, feel free to pop them in the box. I'm going to go through the chat over here, make sure I didn't miss anything. When's the right time to start growing your team? This is from Nisha. When you get more work, borderline burnout, or is there a way to tell before you get to that point? I would say test it out before you get to burnout for sure. That's what I did. I got a little bit of a burnout, but I knew I needed to hire a team, so I just did it right away. I wouldn't wait that long. You follow this? It's a great theme. Do you transparent quotations, work proposals with your team? Do your team get to prepare these for your clients? Regards from Mexico. Oh, does your team? Yes, so I do the same. I'm not sure if this is what you're asking, but I do the same pricing for each of my designers. I think that's really important to me, that I don't pay one designer a little bit more than another designer for the same type of project. So I pay them the same amount for each one. So I am pretty transparent about that. Transparent quotations, so work proposals with your team. Does your team get to prepare these for your clients? So actually, I take care of all the quotes for my clients. I'm kind of the project manager at this point, where I take care of talking to the client up front, handling the email with them up front, onboarding the client, talking to them on the phone. I really like that process anyways, getting to know their brand and telling them about our process and the team that we work with. So I do all of that for them. I do all of the quotes for them as well, with all the variations and different add-ons that they could have. So I handle all the pricing and all that on my end, and I just pay them to do the design work once the client is booked, and I tell them about the project. So they don't handle that for me. As far as transparent quotations with the team, so they don't know how much necessarily the client is paying for the project, but I'm not sure that that's really that important because I pay them a really decent amount. It's what I charged last year, so they're getting paid fairly. So I think they're fine with that, and they understand too. It's a team. You need a profit. Last question here, unless another one pops out. This is from Starlight Social. She says, where do you find your freelancers? So I would say, let's see, 2 of the designers I've worked with and the illustrator I work with, I found on Dribbble. That's DRIBBBLE. Yeah, it's 3 B's. And it's a really great designer network, and you can find a lot of people's work on there. One of them, Jessie, who I've worked with on several projects, I've been following her work for probably several years, like maybe 3 years or so. So I found her on Dribbble originally, and I've seen her pop up ever since then. I found Melissa on there as well, and my illustrator, Bailey. I found her on Dribbble as well. I found, let's see, the web developer was a recommendation from someone I worked with previously. And another developer I worked with, I don't know how I found her blog maybe, I'm not sure. And then another designer I worked with was someone who had commented on my blog a few times, so I knew who she was. And also she had a great blog as well. And what really sold it for me was a couple of girls in my mastermind mentioned her as a potential collaboration. So really, they're the ones that put it to the front of my mind about that. So they really, you can find them anywhere, but if you're looking for designers specifically, Dribbble is a great place to go because you can see their work in progress and as well as how they present themselves, which is important. Okay, so I think that's it, you guys. Wanted to say thank you guys so much for joining in live. I know this is a shorter lunch and learn for the last one, but I hope you guys got a lot out of this workshop and got your wheels spinning about possibly growing your own design team or creative industry, whatever firm you're in. Let's see. Oh, I got one other question. Sorry, I'll dive into this. It says, did you reach out to them via email? How'd you phrase and ask for a subcontractor? So I wouldn't get too hung up on the details there, but basically I just reached out to them through email and kind of told them my process, why I was switching to that model. A lot of people were it was really well received and they were excited about that. Totally makes sense that freelancers work together. Other people just didn't even respond. So I wouldn't really put all your eggs in one basket. I reached out to several people and really only worked with a couple people I felt really comfortable that I could trust with all the client projects. So, okay, that's the last question. Hopefully that helps. But like I said, I hope that you guys kind of take this and learn for your business if this is the right model for you. I can say for me personally, it's been a huge turning point for Spruce Road in that I've been able to open up availability. Like I said, otherwise I would be booked out months in advance. I don't think that's the best business model. So this has allowed me to take on clients that otherwise might have turned to another designer because of being booked out. So I just find a designer and work with them on the projects, and it's been so great. And the designers I've worked with, I've learned a lot from myself, and I've just really enjoyed the process. So I definitely recommend it to anyone. But I will say it does take a lot of work up front to put together those systems and processes in place. So it's not the easiest thing, but once you have the people that you trust, it really is pretty smooth. So I hope this was helpful for you guys, and I will catch you on the next season of Lunch and Learn. Bye.